Hello everybody, today we're making a very special version of Spaghetti Aglio e Olio. Here it is, with a little bit of Calabrian pepper and some lemon. It's absolutely out of this world. Even though it is not traditional, if you try it, I think you're going to love it. Please like and subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button so you'll be notified when I upload more videos. Come on, let's go in the kitchen. I'm going to show you how to make this thing. It's going to be fantastic. And so let's get started. Put a little bit of heat underneath the sauce pot. That's how I actually like to use it. And we're going to add 4 cups of water. And what we're also going to add is a quarter of a habanero pepper. Now, you're going to think that this is a little bit unorthodox, but if we put a quarter of a habanero, which are extremely hot peppers, in the water, what that will do is it will actually transfer that warmth or that heat into the pasta, which in the later dish will just be a part of the pasta or the spaghetti itself. It's a fantastic way to add heat without having a mess of peppers and things like that to deal with. All right? So there's a kind of a cool idea for you. We'll be back when this comes to a boil. Okay, now that our water has come to a boil, you can see the habanero pepper in there having a little bath, having a good time. We're going to add exactly 2 teaspoons of regular table salt into the water. You want to add the salt after the water has come to a boil, because if you add it when the water is cold, it will eventually pit the bottom of your pot that you are boiling your spaghetti in or your pasta in. So there we go. The water is now ready to add the pasta. We'll come back in just a second. All right, we're going to make a special version of Spaghetti Aglio Olio today. So first of all, we have our oil, and if you know me, and I think you know me by now, I use 100% California olive oil. It's because I'm in California and I think it's the best that there is. We're also going to use garlic, which is the aglio in aglio e olio. We're going to use a red pepper for garnish. We're going to use a Calabrian red pepper. We're going to use some parsley, fresh, and to top it all off, believe it or not, we're going to use some lemons. So here we go. Let's begin first by dealing with our parsley. We are going to use the parsley stems and the parsley leaves. Because the stems have a lot of flavor in them, we are going to use those stems to flavor the oil along with the garlic. But at the end of the cooking process, just before we add the spaghetti into the pan, we are going to remove the stems, okay? If you've watched some of my other videos, you will be able to see where we have actually done this as well. So we don't need a lot. We don't need a lot of leaves, especially for 1 or 2 portions. That's going to be about enough, and we don't need that many stems either. So let's just get a little bit more. Let's get one more branch here, and so this is going to be enough. We'll cut those in 2, and we'll reserve those, and then we're going to chop these up, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. All right, so we have our stems, and we're going to reserve those. And now for our parsley itself. Now, since this is more of a refined dish or a refined version of this particular peasant dish, I'm going to chop the parsley up a little bit finer than I normally would. And the reason for that is because I want the parsley very, very fine because it's going to go into the pasta, but I don't want it to outshine our other garnishes, which are going to be a little Calabrian pepper and also a very, very fine dice of this red pepper that I showed you a little bit earlier. So, here we go. Bring everything in. And we're going to go over it a couple of more times just to ensure that they're very, very finely chopped. Now, this only works well if your parsley leaves are somewhat dry. The wetter they are, the worse this is going to work for you. So, do yourself a big favor before you start in. Try to either wash the parsley a little bit earlier in the day so it has a time to dry it with some paper towels, or put it in a salad spinner and dry it that way. That way you'll ensure that when you do chop up the parsley, and that's pretty fine, that it doesn't stick to everything. It already has a trouble of sticking to begin with. As you can see, we don't want to compound that problem. So there you go. We'll be right. All right, so we have our stems, and we're going to reserve those. And now for our parsley itself. Now, since this is more of a refined dish, or a refined version of this particular peasant dish, I'm going to chop the parsley up a little bit finer than I normally would. And the reason for that is because I want the parsley very, very fine because it's going to go into the pasta, but I don't want it to outshine our other garnishes, which are going to be a little Calabrian pepper and also a very, very fine dice of this red pepper that I showed you a little bit earlier. So, here we go. Bring everything in. And we're going to go over it a couple of more times just to ensure that they're very, very finely chopped. Now, this only works well if your parsley leaves are somewhat dry. The wetter they are, the worse this is going to work for you. So, do yourself a big favor before you start in. Try to either wash the parsley a little bit earlier in the day so it has a time to dry it with some paper towels, or put it in a salad spinner and dry it that way. That way you'll ensure that when you do chop up the parsley, and that's pretty fine, that it doesn't stick to everything. It already has a trouble of sticking to begin with. As you can see, we don't want to compound that problem. So there you go. We'll be right back. So now let's work on this pepper. We're going to use this pepper as a garnish. I'm going to cut the top and the bottom of it off. And I'm going to also cut this portion off here and remove the ribs on the inside. Very, very easily, just like that. And then we're going to take the chef's knife. Let me move all these seeds out of the way. And we're going to remove the membrane from inside as well. Now, this is something that you have to be somewhat careful about, especially if your knives are very sharp and or you don't have a lot of experience doing this. So you lay it down flat, and then your knife is going to go underneath the membrane just like this. Sorry, I'm covering it up with my hand, but you can see. And then we're going to come around the other side and cut the membrane off like that. What this does is it creates this as a garnish, right? It's going to make it very, very red. Now, the end product is not going to be seen like this where we've taken a lot off, so it really doesn't matter. Now I'm going to come back And we're going to cut a julienne after I clean a little bit of this up. Now that we're back, we have about a quarter of that red pepper that we've taken the membrane of it off. Look, these seeds get everywhere. You have to be very careful about that. Anyway, we'll set it so that the inside of it, portion of it is facing forward. And we're going to cut matchsticks or julienne of this pepper. Now I can do it pretty quickly, but I'm going to do it slowly just so that you can see that you don't have to go fast. All right. In fact, when I do it faster, it actually comes out better. But here we go. You can just take your time and make these little matchsticks. It doesn't matter if one of them is not perfect like this. We can use that, or you can get rid of it as you want. See, this one has a little bit of a nub on the end, and we'll get rid of those for the garnish. But now we're going to put these all together, and then we're going to mince them. Okay, now this really, it can be done slowly, but line up all of the edges like this, and then we're going to cut them essentially so that they are little squares like that. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit faster because I don't want to bore you. And now you have to be careful of your fingers here. You keep your fingers tucked in like this. And you see where up against this knuckle it's hitting. And you notice that my fingers are curled in that way. And so in doing so, you will ensure that you don't cut your fingers. And this is going to be our garnish. There you go. Look how nice that turned out. Gorgeous. Now, one of these, that's going to be, it looks like it's not in pieces, but it really is. Excellent. And now for the garlic. What we want to do in this instance, in this iteration of aglio, e olio, is to have a very, very small amount, I mean, not a small amount of garlic, but a reasonable amount of garlic, but we want it in small, minute pieces like that. And it's for that reason that I'm using a garlic press. I am not a proponent of garlic presses in general, but in this case, I am. So we take 2 cloves, and now this is going to create a tremendous garlic flavor, far more than, say, just having a regular clove or a clove in its paper, in camicia, or in its shirt, as they would say in Italian, or battering it, hitting down, or slicing it. This is almost pulverized, and what it does is it breaks down the cell walls and releases that chemical called compound called allicin, and that's what gives us this garlic flavor, and this gives a lot of garlic flavor. But what we're going to do is we're going to put it in the pan along with the oil on a very, very low heat, and we don't want it to brown at all. In fact, it's going to be kept as white as possible. So now let's go to the stove. We're ready to work. So now we have our skillet or frying pan or saute pan, whatever you want to call it, on the flame. I've turned the flame up quite a bit because I want to get it hot right off the bat. Be very generous with the olive oil. Not, I mean, extremely generous, but generous. And then we're going to add in our garlic. Okay. And also our parsley stems, because they are going to impart flavor into the oil as well. But as I told you earlier, we will end up removing this garlic. Now you can see it's already sizzling, which means the heat is too high. So what we'll do is we'll keep it on a very, very low flame. I just turned it down to about as low as it gets, so that this does not change color. It remains white, as it were, but also so that it somewhat melts into the oil. We don't want to see this in the final product, if possible, all right? We want it to melt in there, and because it's cut so finely, it will eventually. You'll see what I mean as we get to the end. It'll melt in there, and you won't even see it at all, which is exactly what we want. We want the flavor, but we don't want to see the garlic. And now our water's boiling. We're going to add our spaghetti. Now, a lot of people want to push it in, and you've seen me push it in before like I'm doing now. That's not really necessary. You just have to wait a few seconds, about a half a minute, for it to soften, and then we'll be able to stir this into the water. Now, I'm using a small amount of water because we're going to use the murky pasta water from the starch leaching out into it to finish the dish in just a moment, in about 7 to 8 minutes. Of course, we're not going to make you wait that long. I'll fast forward through all of that. But the habanero has now given the pasta water some heat. And as we stir this in, that pasta is going to take on the heat of that habanero. You can trust me on that. I've experimented with this a lot. And it's going to be delicious. It's capsaicin, so it's the same active ingredient, for lack of a better word, in all of these chilies. So it's not like the Calabrian chili is going to have a different heat than this is. This is going to be more intense. That's why I only used a quarter of the habanero pepper. Now, a lot of people think that you have to continually stir this pasta, that it has to be in copious amounts of boiling water, and that's simply not true. Don't believe the hype. You need to stir so it doesn't stick up until the point where the starches in the spaghetti or the pasta you're using gel, and then they won't stick. It also does not have to be at a rolling boil, okay? It can be under a boil and still be just fine. So, those are two myths that you should not buy into. Don't believe the hype. Think and do some research, understanding how starches work and how the semolina flour reacts with the water and how it gels up are key in your understanding of how you can theoretically cook this pasta and not worry about some of the things that people say to worry about. Like, for example, adding oil to this water. That is a complete waste of oil. It doesn't do anything except perhaps stop the water from boiling over. And we don't have that problem here, because as you can tell, we are cooking the pasta in a very small amount of water, and you know why. It's done on purpose. So we'll come back when we're ready to assemble the dish. So you can see that our garlic is cooking away on a very, very, very low flame. And now there's a lot of parsley stems in there, but they are going to impart their flavor on it. You can see it slowly sizzling away and imparting that nice flavor to the oil. Of course, we're going to add a little bit of chopped parsley at the end, so this isn't exactly necessary, but it is a utilization of the product that we have. We're utilizing the stems and also the leaves so that nothing really goes to waste. If we were making stock or something like that, then we could use these parsley stems in the stock as part of the aromatics, but we're not doing that today. And you notice that there is no color at all on the garlic. Now the pasta is almost ready. It's actually going to be undercooked when we transfer it into the skillet. But what we want to do is turn up the heat just before, and we are going to remove, we're going to remove these stems in a second, but what we do want is we want the heat to be up there so that when we add the pasta, there isn't really a lull in the in the cooking. So you can see I've turned the heat up a little bit, and it's really beginning to sizzle. All right? And we don't want it to go on for too long, but we do want it to come up to temperature. And what we'll do is we'll remove these parsley stems now, and that ensures that we'll be ready to transfer the spaghetti in just a couple of seconds. All right, remember, no color on the garlic. So if we bring this in now, we're going to add this. And of course I am leaving the pepper in the water because we don't want that in here. But we are going to add some water from the pot and finish cooking this way. Now, the word in Spanish for butter is mantequilla. And what we're doing here is we're making, it's called mantecare in Italian. We are going to saute essentially this up so that it creates a semi-permanent emulsion with the oil and the water. It lends itself to it makes a creaminess of the water and the oil and the pasta. As the pasta's starches leach out, it gets incorporated with the oil and the water, and it lends itself to a creaminess, which you can see. Okay? Now there's no need to do this stuff to it. It's mantecare begins with an M because mess also begins with an M. And if you're not used to doing this and the pot isn't big enough and the space isn't big enough, well then you are going to splatter this everywhere, okay? If you just move this back and forth with your one hand and stir with the other hand, you're going to create that creaminess on its own, all right? Without having to worry about having to do stuff like this. Now, you can see that it's creamy essentially, but also that the pasta has soaked up a lot of that water and that oil. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more pasta water, a tiny bit in there to finish this off. Okay, and we're almost ready to plate it. There's only one way to tell, and that's if we take a little taste. It's still a little bit underdone, but that heat from the habanero is definitely there. See, got a lone mullet there. That's perfect. Now, what we're also going to do is we're going to add a little bit of zest from a lemon. Now, this is not traditional. It flies in the face of the traditional version of this pasta, but I didn't say that we were making the classic version. I said we were going to do something a little bit different, a little bit special, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Wait until you taste it in this iteration. It's absolutely out of this world delicious. So let's mix this up a little bit more. And we're ready to plate. And here we go. There's that. And now we're going to add some of that fine chopped parsley. We're going to add our red pepper for a green, white, and red version of this classic Neapolitan pasta. And we're also going to add a little bit of lemon zest to the top here. This particular zester is an excellent one because it doesn't go too deep. You can see that it's just taking the skin off. And if we really wanted to add something a little bit different to it, we could take this Calabrian pepper and put it right there. There you go. How sweet it is. Enjoy that dish. All right, let's see how it goes. Let's see how this thing tastes. I'm going to forego the pepper for just a second and give it a little mix up. By the way, again, if you like what you see, please hit the subscribe and the like button and all that sort of thing. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and so you'll be and the little bell and all of that sort of a thing, because I really appreciate your support and your help and your patronage to my channel. And I hope that in return for that, I'm giving you stuff that you can actually make that's better than what you will ever find in most 99% of all restaurants, and that you can make it for your family with top quality ingredients, spend less money, and eat better than most people in the entire world. So here we go. Wow. The heat is there from that habanero. Let me tell you, that's one of the greatest ways of putting heat into pasta is by putting a pepper in the water. And then there's that lemon. That lemon flavor is not too strong, but it goes perfectly with garlic and olive oil. The garlic flavor is there, but even though we cut it those pieces of garlic were fine, there isn't a huge garlic flavor, okay? It's there. You can taste it, but it doesn't overpower everything. And the olive oil, of course, California olive oil, how sweet it is. You can't beat that. Wow. You've got to make this dish. Here, let me even take a little piece of this Calabrian chili. Because that, believe it or not, those Calabrian chilies that you find in your better grocery stores that are in oil, they lend a fruitiness when you eat, not when you cook with them, but when you eat them just the way that I did. There's a fruitiness to it, as well as some heat as well. But I'm in Southern California, and so consequently, we are used to having somewhat spicy food. I like spicy a lot, and so that's why I use that habanero, and also why I like to garnish with a little pepper like that. If they don't like the pepper, then they don't have to use it. Or if your friends do not like heat, well, then you can add this instead of adding the habanero, and those that do will be able to take a little bite out of this, and those that don't won't, and it won't be in the pasta. That's really something special. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Again, it's not a classic version, but I never said that it was going to be. It's something a little bit different. It's something a little bit fun. It's just adding to the traditional recipe a little bit of lemon. That's basically all there is. Excuse me. But that little addition creates another dimension to the dish that is beyond phenomenal. You should try it. Make it the traditional way, put a little bit off on the side, and then add the lemon and see which one you like better. Please go over it. Oh, by the way, all of the amounts and the recipe and everything like that, well, the recipe's here. You can see how I did it. But everything else is on my website, GS Argenti, G-S-A-R-G-E-N-T-I, gsargenti.com. In fact, I'm going to provide you with a QR code so you can just take a picture of it or put it in your phone, and that way it'll take you immediately to the website. You don't have to worry about typing anything in. Oh. So good. Pasta perfectly cooked, perfectly seasoned, not too salty. Perfect. I mean perfect. Do like I showed you on the video, and you'll have it perfect too, all right? And change it around. Maybe do it the way that you want to do it. Leave a comment. Leave some comments down below. Tell me what you think. Boy, this stuff's all over me. I don't believe it. It's that good. Come on, go make it yourself. Bye.